Randy Brown and Alex Cowboy Oliveira. It's weird because I feel like both these guys are at that point in their career where it's like the old man peak, like right at that 30-ish range in UFC in MMA. It just seems to be a place where a lot of these guys just turn into like that mind equals body. So where they say like their real physical peak is around that early 30 range, like they really get smarter and their fights just look so good around that 35 range. So I really like what some of these guys have put together across the board. But like when you look at Randy Brown, I just have so much respect for the loss against Vincent Luque because I've said it so many times, but I think he has some of the most underrated power in the UFC. And now obviously it's quite well known, but he finishes guys, man. Finished Tyron Woodley the last time out. So right now I'm talking about a fight like, Randy Brown, but you know, Tyron Woodley's a completely different class of fighter based on what we've seen. So, I think that just goes to show where Randy Brown's last loss really kind of puts him. I think this is a fight where he should have a lot of the advantages, right? When you think about how long he likes to fight, crazy good height, maybe not so much from the legs because Oliveira really likes to fight long. It only has a 2-inch disadvantage there, but I think that's where he's going to want to keep the fight if it's standing, maybe not get too close and take a lot of these power shots. Watch out for some of these body kicks because Cowboy can throw, man. And the big thing I've noticed about him is against guys like this that kind of are susceptible to those gritty veterans who sometimes make it through 3 rounds and really just give you a work for your money. And I think that if Randy Brown isn't careful, and Cowboy can kind of, dictate the pace here, it's going to be one of those fights where he's taking a lot of damage, especially to the body, the legs. He's going to work in some of that tighter boxing, but Cowboy's a wild man, right? I think in this case, when you look at what Randy Brown can do, I think it's going to be one of those situations where you kind of want to use your strike and get the fight to the ground. When you look at it from even a statistics perspective, I think Randy Brown is, a fighter that's going to have to deal with a guy who's consistently pushing forward, right? Like Cowboy's always going for takedowns. And if he's able to get top position, I think that's one of those things where ground and pound galore, right? I think his jiu-jitsu can be very, very difficult for Randy Brown to figure out on the fly while he's eating power punches from a guy like Oliveira. So those are the things you want to be careful of. Use those long legs, keep your distance, land at your will and go for those takedowns when it's the most opportune. Because I think if you're not disciplined in this fight, Cowboy can probably pull off a pretty solid upset. Now, the funny part about it is I haven't even looked at the odds here. And I actually think that, right, I thought that this might be something that they threw right at Randy Brown, but no, man, this deserves to be a pretty close fight. Randy Brown at a -145 is pretty fair. I just think that his body of work, given his age and just where he's been at his career, we've kind of seen him just tipsy doodle so close to this line of really, really prime fighters, and then obviously takes the L. When you look at some of the past guys, like I mentioned Vincent Luque, but like Nico Price, Bilal Muhammad, Nico Price put up a show against Donald Cerrone, and we know what Bilal Muhammad can do. So against these types of fighters who are very much ranked style fighters, he needs to take that next step in terms of, where he's at. And guys like Cowboy are the type of veterans you want to check, right? I think Vincent Luque was a very hard fight for him to take. And maybe that was an underestimated, talk from everyone involved, but Vincent Luque signed on the dotted line, no problem. I think this is a fight where it's a little bit more fair, size-wise, skill-wise. I think it's a great test to see where Randy Brown, if this fight is just too difficult on the feet and Cowboy becomes a little overwhelming and takes it to the ground, like, can you survive? Are you resilient? Come back to life and take over a fight against a grizzled veteran who's willing to give you, hell for 3 rounds. I think that's what is the most, telling for the future for Randy Brown. I'm excited to see if he can pull it off. At the same time, it's like you kind of want to see Cowboy get that win under his belt. You quickly look at his record right now, and Shavkat Rakhmonov, probably one of my favorite prospects across the board. He actually reminds me a lot of Kazushi Sakuraba. If you look at the face, I mean, I see it. I don't care if you do. It's just a good little moment for me to kind of eat that up. But such a good career in the UFC when you don't care about titles. And I don't say that loosely. I say it because, like, there's a job for everybody, even in the UFC. And Cowboy, for when he came to the UFC, for how raw he was, I think he's done a phenomenal job at getting the big fights. You know, the Cowboy fight was so good, man. And then I'm just going to quickly say, like, I think he deserves a lot of credit for that guillotine win over Carlos Condit. I mean, that's probably the biggest win of his career. Then you just go through the losses like Gunnar Nelson, Mike Perry, Nicholas Dalby, all in the primes of their careers trying to get it to the top. And when they did, they also have similar experiences to guys like Randy Brown and Alex Oliveira, just a little bit older, right? Max Griffin, Peter Svoboda wins before that Shavkat fight. So I think that he's just a proven vet. And I think that the UFC is willing to give him fights because, frankly, they're exciting and he does his job. You know, I think that's one of those things that, you know, that's a hard thing to come by sometimes as, you know, managers of fighters / promotions. So I'm really excited for these fights across the board. If you ask me, if you're the type of casual that enjoys the striking or a grizzled MMA hardcore fan that still just loves when two guys who can throw, I mean, this is the type of undercard you want to see from the card highlighting the Chinese fighters from the Shanghai PI and the Mongolian fighters to these guys. I mean, like, let's be real. This card is absolutely stacked from top to bottom, and I hope I'm convincing you of that.